There's this guy on Twitter named Michael Ripp, Michael.
Yeah.
Rippe.
Oh, the Ripper?
Hey, is that what they call him?
Yes.
Riper?
That's what I believe.
He's some chief,
Ripper.
some
Okay, good morning. Good morning. We are here on Monday after week 14, December 9th, 2024. And a lot of things to talk about. I'm so pumped. I was having a little bit of connection issues, but here we go. We got a great the morning after week 14 football show today. And of course, we are going to talk not just real football at the top, but then fantasy. Some of my favorite content creators and guests today at 8 a.m. Eastern, PPR fantasy tips, and at 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 11:30 a.m. Eastern, Frank Amarante doing fantasy. But over the next half hour, before we do that, we're going to stick it to what we do every week here. Let's get right into it. So much to talk about, so little time. My guy, TB, you're back. What's going on today? Happy Monday. We got a lot to talk about.
Yes, sir. Whole lot to talk about, Rip. And this is the time of the year, man, where things are coming to a fold. You got a lot of division games that are coming into the later stretch of the NFL season. And every week is crucial, right? This week was crucial for a lot of teams. Moving forward, everything is coming down to a stretch as we get to the Christmas season and next year. So I'm ready to talk ball, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, there's a lot to get into. It was a pretty solid Sunday. We discovered some new stuff. And just for everyone watching, make sure if you have a question you can hashtag TMA football. This way I can find it during the show and try to get you answers, whether it's real or fantasy. And also put in the comments any questions that you may have. Of course, follow all the guests, specifically TB here. His handle and all the details are below his name, Pro Football Post, BTB Sports. And of course, you can follow me at Michael Rippey. Super excited to be here. We are in December. Let's start right at the top. Let's go to the NFC. We saw a performance that made you wonder: did the team get rid of the wrong player, the right player, bring in the right guy? All I know is Sam Darnold cooked 5 touchdowns. Minnesota rolls Atlanta. Kirk Cousins 0 touchdowns on the other side of the field. Break it down, man. Minnesota, Sam Darnold. What are we looking at?
To start off the year, right, we had Sam Darnold as an MVP candidate the first couple of weeks into the season, the way that he was performing. It tailed off a little bit as the season waned, but as you come to the later stretch, this is the most important time for the Vikings and for a lot of NFL teams, and you love to see Sam Darnold getting back into that rhythm, man. 5 touchdowns yesterday, career highs in passing yards and passing touchdowns with 347 passing yards and 5 touchdown passes. I mean, he's over there looking like Joe Burrow with those 2 guys on the edge with Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, man. Those boys were balling, and it just goes to show you that at full strength, you know, they got TJ Hockenson back. They've had some injury struggles with Jefferson and Addison throughout the years. Now they got Aaron Jones as well back. So all of their pieces are in full go, full swing. And you see that this team right now is gelling at the perfect time. But you want to look at their upcoming schedule, though, Rip. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the Vikings right now are still in that hunt to potentially be the number 1 seed in the NFC if the Lions happen to slip up, or the Eagles. So it'll be very interesting to see how this last couple of weeks play out for the Minnesota Vikings. But going into Sam Darnold's performance yesterday, man, spectacular.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns, 347 yards, 22 of 28 Just an incredible day for Sam Darnold. And you look at, as you said, the wide receiver numbers: 133 yards for Addison, 8 catches, 7 catches for Jefferson, 132 yards, 5 touchdowns combined between them. Wow. If they keep this up, Minnesota's, the sky's the limit. I mean, they're 11-2.
How do you stop them, Rip? How do you stop Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on the same side of the football field? And that's what they were doing a lot yesterday, motioning Justin Jefferson, a lot like how Puka Nacua was being motioned in a couple of his sets throughout the game. So when you have those two prolific receivers on the same side of the field, they're motioning across. The defense doesn't know what to do in those points in times. And that's why you saw Jordan Addison go off as well. So when you got Jettas and Jordan Addison going on for 130 plus multiple touchdowns, it'll be a long day for a defense, man.
Yeah. Long day for the defense, and Minnesota again, 11-2, right there in the division race with Detroit. Green Bay dropped a game to Detroit, so they pushed down. But man, what a season! 11-2. I mean, just almost speechless for the Vikings, and Sam Darnold's earning himself a lot of money. Let's continue into Los Angeles. It was a great game. And you mentioned Puka Nacua. He was electric again, 12 for 162 yards with a touchdown. Cooper gets in the end zone, and the Rams 44, Bills 42. What do you think? What's your takeaways? I mean, Josh Allen had an epic performance, but they came up just a touch short. And let's talk about the game, and I want to get your thoughts on what Sean McDermott did with his clock management at the end.
Definitely. So starting off with the Bills, right? This was what you call a trap game, right? Next week, they have Detroit, and you've got a Rams team that's scratching and clawing for wins right now to potentially win that division. They're still in the hunt to win that division. So each game for them is like a playoff game. They need to win these games. And so the Bills ran into a seesaw. They ran into a buzz fight, and the defense specifically came out slow, right? Offensively, like you said, man, historic day for Josh Allen. And we'll talk about MVP later in the show. But I mean, in a loss, how do you even seal the deal on an MVP award? I don't know how you do it, but the stats behind his performances were incredible. So as we speak more primarily towards the winning team, though, man, I mean, Matthew Stafford came out and balled. Puka Nacua came out, 12 receptions, 162 yards, a touchdown, and a rushing touchdown as well. And similar to how I said Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, the Vikings were utilizing them in motion and pre-snap motion and moving them around. The same thing was happening with Puka Nacua, and you can see how they're getting him the football. You don't want to just line a receiver up on the outside with a skill set like Puka Nacua and just have him running routes down the field. You want to move him before the snap. You want to make sure that they can utilize him in different ways, and they showed that yesterday. So with the Rams in full go playoff mode right now, Kyron Williams also had a day. Cooper Kupp also had a day as well, and Matthew Stafford throwing for the most yards that he's thrown for this season. They played their best. They saved their best for last, and every week is crucial for them. So big ups to the Los Angeles Rams, and they've got a big fight coming up this week, man, as they take on the 49ers, on Thursday Night Football. That'll be a nice one, man. That's must win for every team within that NFC West. So go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. When you think about both divisions, I mean, look, on one hand, we'll start with the NFC, as you mentioned, with the Rams. They had a huge matchup with the 49ers. I mean, the Rams are right there to still potentially win the division, or they can get in. And so depending on what happens, as well as the wild card. So it's getting tight there. And then you look, let's go to Buffalo for a second. I mean, Josh Allen, incredible. 6 touchdowns, first player in NFL history in regular season to have 3 passing, 3 rushing, really carried the team for the whole night and was awesome, but it's just a little short. What did you think about Sean McDermott at the end of the game? His time use of his timeouts seemed to run the Bills into basically an onside kick or lose situation when they could have not had that by not running the ball at the goal line and not getting it if the QB sneaks. So any takeaways?
Definitely. And those are some of the things that you look out for when you look at the Buffalo Bills, right? Sean McDermott, he's done a great job for his duration as a Buffalo Bills head coach. Every year they've continued to get better. And this year, I mean, the way that they've been able to let a lot of their defensive starters go, a lot of their captains go, Stephon Diggs goes to Houston, and you wonder what's going to happen with this Buffalo Bills team. And they come out and they're 10-3 at this point in time, 13 weeks, 14 weeks into the season. I mean, you got to give him ups, but for yesterday, those are the things that in the playoffs, if they were to happen, that's how you lose ball games. And you keep running into those postseason battles, those postseason crashes between the Kansas City Chiefs. You can't have those miscues when you go up against the Kansas City Chiefs, because as like we see, they're taking advantage of every little miscue that you have. So if you're Sean McDermott, you've got to go back to the drawing boards, and you got to make sure that you're utilizing your timeouts in crucial possessions. You need to make sure that you're utilizing them smartly, because that can come and bite you in the ass, man.
Yeah, I think that he misplayed that big time, Sean McDermott. He, I think no matter what, it's not even about the touchdown. I mean, they would have been better off kicking a field goal with saving their timeout so they could at least stop them on defensively. But
Right.
once they burned that the play call where they didn't throw it in the end zone and they had to use a timeout, for all intents and purposes, they were relying on an onside kick, which we know based on what we see in the NFL these days, never is, it's just not successful. So I thought that was a big blunder, and that makes Buffalo 10-3, and that makes Pittsburgh 10-3 after they win. Russell Wilson, another solid day at the office. Pittsburgh 10-3 with a victory over Cleveland. So you have Buffalo and Pittsburgh tied for that second and third spot, which, when it comes to the playoffs, that 2 seed would have the home field advantage in a matchup versus the 3 seed if it comes to that. So those are, it's getting tight in the AFC right there at the top. Let's stick out west, though, at the NFC with the other matchup, which is for the division lead, which Seattle now has at 8-5 because they beat Arizona again 30-18. And this one was really behind the backup running back, Zach Charbonnet. Goes for 22 carries, 134 yards. I think he had 59 yards through the air. So he's just a force over the entire day. And the Seahawks are now, leading the division, 8-5. Tough schedule ahead, but what's your takeaways out west for the not just the Seahawks, but are the Cardinals cooked?
I think at this point in time, you've fallen back to 6-7 with the schedule that they have coming up. I mean, it's not the worst, but you have those division games at the end of their season with the Rams and with the 49ers. And at that point, you're looking at potentially falling too far behind. So yesterday was a must win for Arizona. But if we're speaking specifically to Seattle, I mean, this was our pick to win the division, Rip. So, we got to pat ourselves on the back for that one, man. Right now, it's looking good. They're 8-5 sitting there, but their schedule coming up. I mean, yesterday was a big time win. They needed to make sure that they won that game. And like you see, Geno Smith, whenever he's playing the type of ball that we know he can play, that offense is rolling and prolific, man. They've got the weapons on the outside. They've got the running backs. They've got the running game. And their head coach has come in this year in his rookie season as a head coach and has been balling out, man, coming from Baltimore. So it's good to see that they've got their flow going right now, but they've got a tough schedule coming up with Green Bay next week, the Vikings, the Bears, and then ending off at the Rams, but could potentially be for the division title. So coming up, we'll have to see if Seattle can sustain this from yesterday, but yesterday was a must win and they got it. So good win by them.
Yeah, good win by them. And you pointed out the schedule for the Seahawks. It's tough. And then you also pointed out the Rams control their destiny. The Rams, based on a tiebreaker, if they win out and they were to win Week 18 against Seattle, then the Rams would actually win the division. So while Seattle is in the lead, Rams right there. I think it's still up in the air. It's going to be exciting. I mean, look, the Rams had the 49ers this week, as you mentioned. So we've got an exciting run out west. But for this week, we're on the right path with our Seattle pick. Let's go to Miami. I'm wearing the hat because Miami got a W in a very surprising way. It's been a very Miami Dolphins season, ups, downs, and look at what they're right there in that just small little sliver of hope, kind of giving you that as a Dolphins fan or in general. But I want to talk about just the performance of Tua, and we saw a Tyreek game. This is sort of the first game since maybe week 1 where Tyreek really had himself a game. He had 10 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. Of course, Miami sort of looked like they were going to lose this one, but was able to pull it out late and then win in overtime by scoring a touchdown. Tua looks pretty good. What do you think about Miami, and more so, do they have any realistic shot for the playoffs this season? Or, I mean, can they win out, I guess, is a better question.
It's tough right now, Rip, right? They're the 9th seed currently within the AFC playoff picture. I'm looking at it right now. The Colts are in front of them at 6-7, and then you got the Broncos at 8-5 as well as the Chargers. I mean, it's a tough uphill battle. You guys have put yourself in a little bit of a deficit, when Tua Tagovailoa went down. But since Tua's been back, I think he's proved a lot of people wrong, and he's shown a lot of people that he is the man for the job out there in Miami with a lot of question marks surrounding his contract and if Tua's the guy and injury history. I mean, he's going out there and balling, and via ESPN, this is the third straight game with 300 passing yards, which is tying the longest streak in Miami history. So it just goes to show you that when Tua's on the football field, he makes an impact, an elite impact. He is one of those quarterbacks in the league that you want to make sure that you keep on your team. And I mean, from your perspective, for being a Dolphins fan, what do you think of Tua before I keep moving forward? What is your perspective on him?
Let's take a second. I'm going to answer that. I just want to give a shout out to everyone that hit us that's watching live. Sub to Big Draft Energy, GR Sports. Appreciate it. Shadow Chasers with the questions. But yeah, so I appreciate all the questions and comments and everyone watching. What do I think about Tua? You know, he's been much better. I feel like he's been more in command, but again, I think what I feel about Tua is what I feel about Miami. And when you watch Miami play, it's the same thing. It's sort of a level of competition. Miami is able to beat bad competition. The Jets are bad competition. The Miami loses to good competition. We've seen this consistently throughout Mike McDaniel's tenure in Miami. But Tua's playing really well. But I don't think it changes my thoughts. I mean, it's the same thing. You know, you lose to the Packers on Thanksgiving, and then you beat the Jets in a game you probably should have lost anyway. So it's not really that impressive. But look, I think let's not spend too much time on Miami because I want to get to some more stuff. What do you think for their schedule? Texans, 49ers, Browns at the Jets. Because, I mean, essentially they have to win out. They're not winning out, though, right?
Yeah, I see maybe potentially 2 losses within that last stretch, and they've got to win out. Like you said, they've got to win out. They would have to go 10-7 for any chance at a playoff push. I think it's just a little bit too much of an uphill climb, man, when you look at that AFC playoff picture overall.
I think so too, and that's where I'm at. But for one Monday where Miami is won, I'll rock the support. All right,
shout out Miami, man. Shout out Miami.
I don't get that many chances to. All right, let's go to your squad, and then I want to get into the some of our playoff stuff. Eagles, Jalen Hurts. I mean, they get the victory over Carolina, a tough one, not pretty. At the end of the day, a win's a win. We know that. But Jalen Hurts, you know, he has all 3 touchdowns for the team. But where are we with the Eagles after a game against Carolina that should have been easier than, you know, it was?
The hardest thing to do in the NFL is what, Rip? It's win football games, right? We won the football game, but it's the way that we win the football game. And you wonder, maybe similar to how the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams, maybe this was a trap game for Philadelphia, you know, going on 9 straight wins. I mean, is this the point in time that we look at the Eagles and we're like, what's going on with the Eagles? What's going on with the offense? We see Saquon Barkley, who breaks LaShawn McCoy's single-season rushing record for Philadelphia at 1607. So shout out to Saquon Barkley, man. And shout out to LaShawn McCoy as well, because he was one of my favorite running backs coming up. But you look at the offense, right? And these are my concerns, Rip. This is my biggest concern. You see A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the sideline going at it a little bit, not with each other, but just about the overall offensive scheme, right? You see the frustrations because they go out and 2 prolific receivers, some of the best we've got in the game. A.J. Brown goes 4 catches for 43 and Devontae goes 4 for 37. Now, we won the football game, and the most important thing you want to do in the NFL, of course, is winning football games. But at the same time, is this type of style sustainable? Now, we asked that question, but at the same time, when you look at the win-loss designed rush percentages for Jalen Hurts and his winning losses for the season, if they rush the football 49% or less, the Eagles are 26-18. If they rush it 50% or more, they're 19-1 for his career. Jalen Hurts, if they run the football 50% or more, he's 19-1. So it just goes to show you that the coaching staff, the offense, Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni said, you know what? After that 2-2 start, we're going to run the football. We're going to put emphasis on running the football. And it has bode well for us overall with Saquon Barkley having a historic season. But you want to look ahead and look at the postseason and look at how the Eagles are winning games. Is it going to be enough in the postseason? That question is very live for me. Overall, defensively, we've improved. Offensively, we have improved because we found our identity. But overall, there needs to be a little bit more from Jalen Hurts in the passing game for us to get over that hump, I believe, which is the Detroit Lions or potentially the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, it's funny. I always like to hear your thoughts. And my initial thought was specifically exactly what you said. Look, a win is a win. That's the ultimate end game, what you're playing for. But also, there is something about, like, can this stay up and the type of win and does this, the team camaraderie. It's just, you know, and I think it's just an Eagles thing. I'm going to say it's okay for 1 week. You know what I mean? I'm not going to try to dive too hard into it, but you listen to them and you think about AJ and you think about everyone. You know, everyone wants to eat, not just watch, you know, the quarterback eat, because the quarterback eats no matter what because they get the ball every play. So one of those interesting things to watch. anyways, Philadelphia does get the win. That's most important. And you know, and then we'll see. The Chiefs.
Hurts, I mean, just throwing this in there. Hurts is playing well. He's not turning over the football. He's playing well. It's just, is it sustainable against a team that hones in on Saquon Barkley and says, 26 is not going to beat us today. We're going to force one to throw the football and win it with his arm. Can Jalen Hurts do that? We need to see it moving forward. So that's the only question mark I have for me.
Yeah, and look, you're not going to win a lot of games when your running back has more yards rushing than your quarterback has
more yards passing.
Right? And Saquon had 124 yards rushing. Jalen had 108 yards passing. If it wasn't for these 3 TDs in the W, it would be a lot different scenario. So we both know that, and we pay attention. But again, you win the game. A lot of teams can't win games no matter what happens. So we'll give it to them.
Got to stay optimistic, man. Got to stay optimistic. You're right. Let's keep rolling.
Hey, I wish I had the optimism in Miami that Philadelphia have, right? Anything else you want to highlight, or did you want, or you want to talk about some of the MVP? You want to talk about MVP?
I just want to go into the NFC North, man, and speak a little bit about that. Of course, I mean, you've got a lot of, and my thing is, when we get to this time of year, Rip, it's so interesting because you have the opportunity now to look at schedules. You have to see divisions, you see matchups, and understanding that a lot of teams are scratching and clawing for these playoff spots, and there's still a lot of things that are up in the air. Even when you look at the top of the NFC with the Vikings, the Lions, and the Eagles, you know that number 1 spot in the NFC is still up for grabs, right? And coming up, I mean, the Lions, they turn around and now they've got to face off against a Bills team who now needs that win, coming off of a tough loss yesterday. They need that win. Then you go up against 2 back-to-back in the Bears and the 49ers and end off with the Vikings, right? So the Vikings square off against the Bears, the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Lions. And so the Eagles have the easiest schedule remaining. But when you look at that NFC North, if the Lions slip up on 1 or maybe 2 games, that division or that spot in the AFC, that number 1 spot in the AFC could be up for grabs. So it's just, when you come to this point in time of the year, it's so interesting because we're coming up. We're seeing how the MVP race is finalizing. We're seeing how the NFC and AFC playoff picture is coming up. We're seeing standings. We're seeing draft positioning. So it's so interesting to dive into the numbers and to dive into the schedules. And so I just wanted to highlight that the remaining schedule for the NFC West and the NFC North, the NFC South, even with the Bucs and the Falcons, and the AFC West with the Chargers and the Broncos. I mean, you've got a lot of things that can change in these last couple of weeks. So just wanted to highlight that, Rip. That's all. And this last statistic I wanted to throw at you for the NFC. This is the first conference, the first time the NFC with 3 11-win teams through week 14 since 1986 via ESPN. The NFC has never been so close as it is now, and it's just crazy to see because we didn't even expect the Vikings to be there at the start of the year.
No.
Or the Lions. I mean, no, the Lions, we could have seen the Lions. We could see the Lions. The Vikings is the team that kind of shocks everybody. And now they have some question marks. Remember, I had posed to you with Sam Darnold. What do we do now? We just drafted J.J. McCarthy. Now we got Sam Darnold. So
hey, Sam, there's questions. Some stuff I want to touch on here. And then I want to hear about an MVP pick. Sam Darnold, we have questions. But I think at this point, Sam Darnold has been one of the top quarterbacks in football. I was all day on Sunday. I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, my God, because I put out the stat in this morning's box score breakdown, and this was out yesterday. In 2024, this season, where Kirk Cousins now plays for Atlanta, he's getting paid just for 2024 $62.5 million this season to throw the ball for Atlanta. His replacement in Minnesota is Sam Darnold, who's getting paid $10 million all in for this season. Sam Darnold out there, 347 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's got 0 interceptions, and the Vikings are at 11-2. And you look at what's happening in Atlanta with Kirk Cousins getting all the money. He's 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions just in the game. Atlanta 6-7. They're you know what I mean? I mean, it is wild how good Sam Darnold has been and how good the amount of money he's going to get paid in the offseason. So we'll have the discussions on where Sam Darnold goes. Does he stay in Minnesota? What everyone does. For one season right now, it's impressive to see because Sam Darnold, not only is he playing well, he legitimately looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
100%, Rip. 100%. Agree with all your points, man.
And you talked about the records, and you talked about Detroit and Buffalo this week as we look to week 15, where we'll be back next Monday. We got a great Monday next week to talk about. We got Detroit, Buffalo next week. And then you also have at the top, we got Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. These are 2 of the best games of the season next week, and they're going to be top teams from each conference matching up. So it's theoretically, we could talk about Super Bowl previews. We could talk about, these are the elite teams. And then you talk about, who's going to win? Detroit, Minnesota finishes the season here. So that division, the North is up in the air too.
It's a whole bunch of stuff that could play out in the NFC over these last couple of weeks, where if these teams got to show up, and you would think that, closing out, that when you're 11-2, you're 12-1, you're 11-2, you think that, we can cruise to end the season. We could maybe rest some of our starters in the last week of the season. I don't know if this year these teams can do that, because you can drop, mainly if you're a number one seed in the NFC, like the Detroit Lions are right now. If you lose that week 17, week 18 game against the Vikings, you could drop down to the third seed in the playoff race. So every week is crucial, and that's why this time of the year is so fun and so entertaining for the NFL, man.
Oh, man, it really is. This is always entertaining, us too, and getting together. We got 60 seconds, and then we're getting out of here. It is the end of week 14. We just quickly preview with week 15 with the two big games there. Yep. MVP. Is the MVP discussion over? Josh Allen's not only got the cape on, he's got his first MVP award, or should we stay locked in on maybe it's not?
I think right now, Josh Allen, with that performance yesterday, if they would have ended up winning that game, I think you could have signed, sealed, and delivered it. But with them losing, but still with that performance, he clearly is in the lead right now. But he has a chance to redeem that loss yesterday with a huge win in Detroit, man. So if they go and they beat Detroit next week and he has a game similar to today, you can sign, sealed, and deliver that joint, man. You can give him an envelope right now. You can place it in here and say, hey, the MVP is yours, Josh Allen, because he played fantastic football yesterday.
He did, and he's been playing it all season, and he's more concerned not with MVP but winning his first title. We got some more weeks to talk about it. We get the most exciting part of the football season. It's the rest of December, first week of January, the playoffs, and we're going to keep doing this. Great to see you, my friend. Where can everyone find you? Obviously, Pro Football Post, BTP Sports, Terrell Bush.
Yes, sir, bro. Appreciate you, man, for having me on as always. And my apologies for last week, man. I apologize for that, and to everybody that's watching. But you guys can follow me at Pro Football Post on Twitter and BTB Sports on Instagram. I'll be posting clips from the show, posting clips everywhere throughout the week, because like I said, this time of the year is my favorite. So enjoy the show every week, Rip. Looking forward to next week, and have a great rest of the show, man. Appreciate you.
Have a good one, bud. All right, so make sure you follow my guy, Terrell Bush. He's here every Monday morning, 7:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, to talk about the week that was, week 14. We just broke it down. If you want more, you can go to the box score breakdown out now on my profile, on Twitter, on X, and always an absolute pleasure to sort of get his thoughts. He's always locked in on the East Coast with obviously the Philadelphia teams, the Eagles, and specifically the NFC. But he's so good at the content, and you got to follow all the sites he's working with and the stuff he's doing. All right, so we're going to continue on. Shout out to everyone that is watching, listening. If you do have any questions, you can hashtag TMA Football. It is Monday, December the 9th, week 14 on the wrap tonight. We got a barn burner on Monday Night Football with the Bengals and the Cowboys, and that means we are coming down to probably the final game of your fantasy football regular season. It does not matter what type of league you play. Now, you may already be playing playoffs, but you're probably, if you're not in the playoffs, in most standard leagues, you'd be playing 14-week season. Monday night could decide, do you make the playoffs? Are you going to buy? Are you already looking towards next season? You got to stay out of last place so you don't have to wear something. Who knows? But when you think about fantasy football, and I do, this is one of the best that's out there. I've been following and connecting with him for a while now, so it's super pumped to finally get him here. He's a busy man. I welcome him in. PPR Fantasy Tips. My guy, what's going on, Jared?
What's up? What's up? How are you doing? Happy to join. Sorry I wasn't able to get on earlier. I've been looking forward to coming and talking some shop.
Hey, look, I got you at the end of the regular season, the best time, right? It took me 14 weeks, but you're on something like that. I'm stoked that you're here because you have been doing content at the highest level fantasy-wise since before the season even started, and it's been super valuable for thousands of people across the interweb, right? So first, obviously PPR Fantasy Tips, but anything you want to share where people could follow, subscribe, and so forth.
Yeah, man, I keep it pretty simple right now. I might look into trying some new things out for next season, but right now, just find me on X, PPR Fantasy Tips, and I'm pumping out as much useful content as I can, and just trying to have some fun and win some leagues while we're doing it.
Hey, wouldn't that be nice, right? Win some leagues. That's the idea, and that's really the focus moving forward. Because as I said, so tonight, Monday Night Football, basically wrap up Week 14. probably have a really good idea where you're looking for week 15. Maybe you made the playoffs and you're on a bye. Maybe your league doesn't. There's so many randomness with how the league is set up. But we'll kind of break it down on just standard sort of style playing. If we get questions, we'll take them. But let's just start. This is a fun segment. This is the morning after football, and we know the morning after. Sometimes you wake up and you got to walk home and you're feeling good about yourself. So I like this segment called the Walk of Shame. We'll start with. You walked home, man, you don't feel so great. You got all your clothes on from last night. Still, these are sort of players that you didn't feel good about anymore. So give me an idea. Sort of, let's just do 2 players overall. We could do one at each position of your choice, whatnot. But players that disappointed, maybe that you were locked in all season, and really with an eye towards week 15 and maybe just the playoffs, so that we can actually be helpful for people watching or listening.
For sure. So some guys that I guess disappointed this week that have me a little bit worried moving forward. The first one I think is going to be a little bit surprising, but also maybe not for those that have him rostered. AJ Brown is someone that disappointed this week. He's a big name, big talent. There's, no question that the guy can put up big time, week winning points. But I think, unfortunately, and I think a lot of people expected this to a point, but maybe not to affect AJ Brown, was with the addition of Saquon Barkley. When you've got Saquon and Jalen Hurts, when they get into the red zone, they kind of just go into, monster mode and score every single touchdown. Then you've got, a healthy Devontae Smith out there who's now magically coming on. And AJ Brown somehow is just getting overlooked. Really, at the end of the day with AJ Brown, what worries me is he's not seeing the volume you would want out of a guy that you likely drafted in the first round. Maybe if you're in some, in the luckiest league of all time, you got him in like the second round of your draft. But, the guy puts up numbers when he gets targeted. I don't understand why the Eagles are not peppering him. I looked up a stat last night about AJ Brown, where anytime he's actually seen 7 targets or more, he's had 100 yards and at least 15 fantasy points. And for what I believe he's only had that happen maybe 3 times or 4 times this entire season, which, kind of ridiculous to me. But, although he worries me, I'm not going to act like I'm not still starting him. He's a guy that if you drafted, you kind of just have to roll with the punches, but he definitely has me a little bit worried. And I won't act like I wasn't considering benching him for a guy like, like Jackson Smith-Njigba or someone like that that's been absolutely balling recently.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the Eagles' schedule for the fantasy playoffs, which we know are pretty much 15, 16, and 17 of the NFL season. For the Eagles, you've got the Steelers on tap next week, and then you have the Commanders and the Cowboys. So you would think that the schedule looks pretty good for those at least the semifinal championship rounds. But got to get on the ball. Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of got to cross your fingers with him, start him, and, live and die with the results. That's what you get with your stars.
All right, that's an elite star wide receiver, AJ Brown. Want to go another position, another player that also fits into this sort of, walk of shame. We're struggling here to play you.
Walk of shame, I would say a guy like, if I'm switching up positions, I would probably say a guy like DeAndre Swift has me worried. He started off the year slow. He, if you stayed patient with him, he started rewarding you a little bit kind of during the middle of the season. And now it's looking like he's kind of hitting a little bit of a slump once again. I personally think that's mainly because of health. When guys are injured, we like to overlook it, I feel like, in the fantasy community. Just because they're active does not mean that guy is going to be producing like maybe he has in the past. I am excited about the new OC in Chicago, and I kind of thought that would give him a boost, but the only thing that I can think is that his health is just, not up there. I would definitely be not so excited starting him in the playoffs, but he's kind of one of those guys where unless you are stacked with depth at running back, which unfortunately for most leagues, I don't think that's the case for most teams, you kind of just have to roll this guy out and hope he can get in the end zone.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift, tough, and this Bears schedule is tough too down the stretch here. They got the Minnesota, they got at Minnesota, Detroit, and then Seahawks in the fantasy playoffs.
Uh.
It's a tough one, right? I mean, not great.
No, definitely not. And then I did want to mention one other, just because I always get questions about this guy, and I've made a point to always say that I'm a little bit nervous about him. It's Jayden Reed. He started off the year an absolute monster. If you had him on your roster, you probably thought, oh my God, I've hit the jackpot. This guy's going to be putting up huge points for me every week. And honestly, I think he should be. To me, he should be the new age Debo. But for whatever reason, I know why. They have lots of talent in Green Bay, but for whatever reason, they don't give him nearly the kind of volume that I think he should have. And even when they do, it's you can't even rely on him to get like 5 targets a game, which is kind of crazy to me. And so if you are starting Jayden Reed, I see him as a flex play. He's one of these guys where you just have to kind of own it. If he busts, he busts. That is a part of the risk of starting him. It's like starting a guy like Xavier Worthy. Week 1, everybody was super excited. He went off. Well, guess what? He needs a deep touchdown. He's likely not going to get volume, although last night he did, look a lot better than he has previously volume-wise. But Jayden Reed is just, big talent, but a guy that is going to either kind of ruin your week or win you your week. So I just quit expecting him to be a superstar.
Yeah, that's we're going to keep him on the list. It's a good list when you think about sort of walk of shame players. These are all players sort of big names or have been, or you came in with high expectations, and no one has been more on people's fantasy I don't want to say hate list or the guy that you hear the most about in the last few days than Jayden Reed. Because, I put out the box score breakdown on Mondays, and you look at the box score and you go, wait, Jayden Reed, what are you doing? No, where is he on this list? 1 target, zeros everywhere. And so not what you want to see from a guy, but I'm with you. And I think a lot of people are out there with you that Jayden Reed, you think should be getting a lot more action. He should be the guy that we saw early in the season. And then, we were so excited about and could be, a top 10 player at the position. And now he's just the only 10 that he is getting the zeros across the board. So I like it. AJ Brown, DeAndre Swift, Jayden Reed. These are 3 names that fit really well as far as disappointment and so forth, and names you sort of want to pay attention to in the playoffs that maybe you want to go elsewhere if you can.
Pray you have depth.
Let's flip it though, because there is always the opposite. We don't need always to give shame, and let's talk our game here, right? It was a great night. Now it's the morning after. Who are those guys that not only are we talking their game up, but maybe we're talking their game up specifically fantasy playoffs in mind? I think I have a couple, but I'm giving you the floor. Tell us.
Yeah. So the first one I'm going to say, he might not be a guy that comes to most people's heads, but he's one of my favorites. And he's been very much under the radar. You might even be able to get him off, or you likely will be able to get him off the waiver wire this week. Adam Thielen. I think if you're a team that, is bottom of the standings, but making the playoffs, or, maybe there's some teams that are still trying to solidify their playoff spot, but I do believe playoffs should be getting going for most leagues here next week. I think Adam Thielen's a really good option. Last year, he absolutely crushed it as the wide receiver 1. He's kind of been forgotten about because you had, Deontay Johnson, one of my favorites. If you follow my page, I love Deontay, and has absolutely disappointed and just made me very sad this year. But I do think Adam Thielen's going to come up to be a very clutch ad for really anybody that needs any help at flex. If you have a guy like Jayden Reed, if you have a guy like DeAndre Swift that you're having to start in your flex spot, I know it sounds kind of sketchy starting Adam Thielen on the Panthers, blah, 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 but Bryce Young has turned it up. I think Adam Thielen has Bryce Young's trust, and he is very talented when healthy, and he's going to get peppered with targets. And if you're in PPR, which is what I prefer as far as leagues go, that's really all you can ask for. Good volume, a quarterback that's on the rise, and just throw him in your lineup, and he feels like a very safe 10 points to me, like truly for the rest of the season. I would be comfortable with him in my flex.
Yeah, I like that. That's a perfect type of player when you think about Tucker game. I mean, Adam Thielen could be the type of guy that you really do look to need to get you those fantasy points that maybe you're not expecting early in the season. And that's the thing when we come down to fantasy playoffs. It's not it doesn't really matter how you got there, what you're doing. It's about the next few weeks. And there are guys like Adam Thielen who you weren't relying on to lead you there, but could actually end up being the super valuable sort of flex player or replacement injury player to get you there. So I like that name, Thielen. What else you got for us for Talk Your Game?
My second guy, I'm going to stick with the same position on this one, and this is just the Bama in me. I had to give this guy a shout out. Jerry Jeudy is my next guy. Since he's come into the league, the guy's been hated on by everybody, and as a Bama truther, you gotta find my spots right now with them not making the playoffs. The guy's balling. I've said every single year, I've always felt like he was about to break out. I'm like, the guy just needs to get consistent targets. He needs the right offense. I don't know, Denver. I mean, Cortland Sutton looked horrible in Denver. Jerry Jeudy looked horrible in Denver. And now all of a sudden they mix some things up. Denver's got a good rookie quarterback, good for Cortland Sutton. But guess who Jerry Jeudy gets? He gets Jameis Winston. This guy is going to air it out every single week. He's going to throw some picks, but guess what? That doesn't hurt you with Jerry Jeudy. He's their number one wide receiver. Yes, you had Cedric Tillman out, and some may think that Cedric Tillman is the wide receiver one. I'd be willing to say that they're both wide receiver 1A, wide receiver 1B, and then you've got Elijah Moore and David Njoku there. Njoku is always going to get fed. I think Elijah just kind of fills in where needed, but I think Jerry Jeudy is going to be a strong flex start, maybe even a wide receiver 2 start for people for the rest of the season. You can just rely on the Browns to likely not get too far ahead in these games and Jameis to sling the rock. And Jerry Jeudy has been that guy, and he has been putting up double-digit points like an absolute madman. So there's really nothing not to like about my guy, and just a little Roll Tide for everybody watching that hates the team.
Oh, I'm not surprised that it was only 16 minutes in we got the Roll Tide. I thought we might get one earlier. So and if you're drinking at home, it is early on Monday morning, but you got to probably get a few more if you're drinking on Roll Tide. Hold on, we're gonna get to. It's funny you say Jeudy because we're gonna do something fun. I wanted to do specifically with you in a little bit here about Alabama. We'll get you. Okay, I like the Jerry Jeudy thing, Adam Thielen. Is there any more guys across any of the positions, or do you feel comfortable with those are your two Talk Your Game guys for the playoffs?
I would say those are the two that I would kind of like pinpoint. But I mean, there's some huge names out there like Zach Charbonnet. I mean, if he keeps getting the starting spot, we'll see what happens with Kenneth Walker. He is going to be a guy that can really upgrade your roster. Every time he's a workhorse in that offense, he seems to ball. So, don't shy away from him just because he's the backup that's coming and, done his thing. Let him rip.
Yeah, let him rip. I love that. Anytime rip is involved. But you're right. Zach Charbonnet was the guy actually on my mind. I thought maybe I'd hear from you because what an epic replacement of Kenneth Walker. I mean, he's been balling anytime he gets the opportunity. He has 193. I think he was 193 total yards in the game on Sunday and helped Seattle get that victory over Arizona. All right, we have a question I just want to ask you here. We had for playoffs week 15. Who do you start out of Jayden Reed or Josh Downs?
Well, I mean, first of all, so these are like the kind of questions that I'll get typically early in the week. And I'm like, I'd love to give you an answer and I can, but I don't like giving people answers where it's like, that my answer could very easily change later in the week. So, when you've got a guy that's been injured, you need to wait to see what the practice reports say. You need to, they're coming off a bye, which is nice, but if let's just pretend Josh Downs is healthy, I'm starting Josh Downs over Jayden Reed 100%. Josh Downs to me is the wide receiver 1 in Indianapolis, and that hurts my soul to say because I'm a big Michael Pittman fan. I thought he was going to be a PPR monster once again this year, but Anthony Richardson, a little bit underwhelming, but we'll see. He's looked good since he got benched and got brought back on. And, for me, I'm trusting Josh Downs. At least I feel like you can be confident he will see volume. And Jayden Reed, like I said, the guy got one target this week. How do you have faith in a guy that gets one target? You got to just pray that they get towards the red zone and he gets a little dink and dunk touchdown or he makes some giant play, which, he can. He's very talented, but I like to avoid those, to me, what I would call riskier plays and stick with guys that I feel will get volume and have a better chance at a safer start.
All right, I like it. And one more here from the Shadow Chasers. I'm with you on that. Shadow Chaser said Cooper Rush puts up 25.4 fantasy points tonight on Monday Night Football. So you think so, PPR?
Ah, man, Shadow Chasers. I mean, if that's what you need to win, I'll cross my fingers for you, but I can't act like I think there's any chance that that's going to happen. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a stretch. If you get 15 out of Cooper Rush, I think you're having a great time with him in your lineup. So, I mean, I hope it happens. It would make for a fun game, and I do think the Bengals are going to go up, and Rush is going to have to toss the rock. So let's just hope for some big passing plays for CeeDee Lamb to stay healthy, Brandon Cooks to make some magic maybe. It's doubtful, though, if I have to be honest. Very doubtful.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty. I think I'm with you on that. All right. We should shout out to Big Draft Energy and of course GR. We do agree. Playing against Josh Allen, that will be a nightmare. I think I saw one league. I saw one league on Sleeper that Josh Allen had 70 points. It's insane. Yeah. I mean, Josh Allen, was it the best quarterback performance fantasy wise ever?
Yes. That was in NFL history. As soon as that game ended, I started like looking some stuff up, doing some research. From anything that I was able to find and look up through my research, yes, that was the greatest fantasy football performance you have ever seen out of a quarterback. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Really hope you did not miss that game. What a ridiculous game. Fantasy football gold.
Yeah. Okay. So a few more things we got to get through, and there's a lot. Okay, I know week 15. You're probably, it is Monday. You still got to put your stuff together. You're going to get out a ton of stuff this week. Obviously, you got to make sure you're following Jared at PPR Fantasy Tips on Twitter, X, call it whatever you want, because obviously it's a huge of content. But just tell us early preview. Is there anything on your mind that you're already you've done so much research already and you still diving in? But any sort of tips you want to lead to for week 15 this early on?
Yeah, I mean, I would say number one, I would say keep an eye on some of these big name injuries. I think that's going to be huge, and it could swing who you're either who you're playing against or who you're going to be starting in a very large way. For instance, Kenneth Walker, like we said, Breece Hall, Derek Carr, Bucky Irving, Isaac Guerrero. All those names are guys that I'm going to be monitoring throughout the week because if those guys miss time, you either get with Isaac, all of a sudden you got a big waiver wire guy that you can pick up. I'm actually blanking out on his name. They're on their fourth string running back. Who is it?
Patrick Taylor.
Yes. So I think he would be, whoever is the running back in San Francisco. Yeah. I think you can just plug them in. That offense is that good. You just plug them in. These are NFL talents. None of these guys are bad running backs. I like to hate on some guys, but all these dudes are very talented. If they're in San Francisco, plug them in, and you should, I would think, be safe for 10 points. I think Bucky Irving is going to be a big one to watch, although I did see reports last night after the late night game that they are thinking that Bucky Irving is going to be back. So that's great news for all the Bucky Irving, the fans out there. Breece Hall, really unsure of what's going to happen. I wouldn't be shocked if they sat him out. I don't really see why they would rush him back. And they might as well let Braylon Allen continue to get valuable touches and experience in the offense. Derek Carr, I think my guess is he's going to be out and miss time. I think that kind of ruins the value for anybody on the New Orleans Saints outside of Alvin Kamara. He's going to be the only one that I'd be willing to touch. As far as next week goes as well, trying to be a little bit quick. Waiver wire pickups, got some guys. Top three guys would be Adam Thielen, Braylon Allen, Matthew Stafford. If you need a tight end, Freiermuth would be my pick. Just think, Stafford, I think he, with healthy Puka and Cooper Kupp, touchdown machine. I think you can rely on him to throw 2 touchdowns a game and put up some yards and be a safe streaming quarterback if you do need that help. Braylon Allen, of course, if Breece Hall is out, he's just a nice plug-in. And then Adam Thielen, like I said earlier, target machine, wide receiver 1 in Carolina.
Yeah, you mentioned Thielen a number of times. I don't think we'll be able to forget that. When you think about the waivers, though, the Braylon Allen thing, what's your take on the Braylon Allen thing? I mean, because if you look at if you watch the game or you look at the numbers and you think about this season, Braylon Allen, I mean, he's been the hot name, but if you are being honest about it, Isaac Davis split the timeshare. I mean, it's pretty much 50-50 and might have looked a little bit better if, name-wise. So, I mean, what do we think next week if there is no Breece Hall again? I mean, are we confident that Braylon Allen's just going to do more, or is it the same? I mean, because I was a little disappointed in Braylon Allen, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, I was very shocked to see the usage out of Davis. I didn't think that he would really do much more than maybe like a Justice Hill would for the Ravens. And he ended up coming in and doing a lot, like you said, essentially splitting the backfield. For me, this is more of just a gut call, to be honest with you. I'm sticking with Braylon Allen. If Davis doesn't get in the end zone last week, I don't think anybody's talking about him, even with, having a little bit of a split. I just personally have faith in the talent that Allen has, and that's who I would stick with. The good news is if you're light on running backs, it looks like there's another option out there for you if Braylon Allen has already been picked up. So go get Davis if you're desperate, and throw him in your lineup if you need to. But I won't lie, I would be very, very scared starting that man.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with it. Okay. It's good stuff for week 4, for the week 14 kind of wrap and sort of looking to get rolling into week 15. It's obviously a very exciting time. If you play fantasy, this is the time that you really play for. All those times during the regular season where you needed this to happen and that not to happen. And I hope you saved up enough karma that it all in week 15, 16, and 17. Because I always say when things go bad during the regular season in week 6, 9, and I always reason with myself, you know what? They're going to get me back for the positive in the playoffs, because it's much better to have the good things happen over the next few weeks for your teams.
Yeah, like a Justin Jefferson performance last night. That's what we want. Come on when the games matter, baby.
Yeah. There you go. I mean, the Sam Darnold performance. We didn't even talk
yes.
about. All right, I want to make sure we can get time in for Bama too, but let's talk about. I saw something that was out there. I already saw you had put something out for your 2025 or top 10 early on already. Want to just talk through quickly sort of what we're looking for, let's just say your standard regular PPR league for 2025 as a base case. Who's your number one player when we're drafting for next season right now?
That is a tough one. I think my number one player, what I can say confidently is Christian McCaffrey will not be on that in that spot. That really hurt this year. I think I would lean, I'm a big wide receiver guy. Although the running backs have been absolutely crushing it, I kind of feel like I'm not fading a guy like Justin Jefferson. I would be happy picking him with my number one pick. I think Jamar Chase, although I have this weird thing, he's taken me out of a couple championships that I thought I should win, where he had monster weeks and ruined my chances. So I have like a little built up hate for Jamar Chase that I can't get past. But I mean, based on the way the guy's playing, it really just comes down to, do you trust Joe Burrow to stay healthy? And if Joe Burrow is healthy, Jamar Chase is an incredible, number one pick as well. Saquon Barkley, great. I would have no issue picking him with my number one pick based on what he's looked like in that Eagles offense. At the end of the day, you want a guy that's not going to bust, right? There's plenty of guys that you can pick at your number one pick, 2, 3, 4, 5. It really doesn't matter. They're all going to have a ton of upside. They're all going to be hopefully great for your fantasy team. But as we've seen this year, you got guys like Tyreek Hill that aren't doing, what you expect. You want to just try and find the safest top end elite talent that you can. And, you just can't afford to have a bust in your number one pick unless, you're just a god at picking sleepers late in the draft.
No. I think that's one of the key strategies. Obviously, I always say you can't win your draft early, but you can certainly lose it. And the reason that you can't win early is most players, most times you're picking, everyone's getting the elite talent, but ultimately you just want to get that talent that plays, like you mentioned, Christian McCaffrey. That's how you start to lose, is when you guys don't play and there's an injury. But you just want to have that base case. All right, so you're going wide receiver with Justin Jefferson or maybe Jamar Chase, but not running back. So you don't think Saquon, is Saquon up there in the conversation for you, or you're just gearing towards wide receiver because of the way that you see the season has played out?
I mean, for me, I just tend to lean wide receiver. I can't help it. It's just kind of like a strategy that I have where I just feel that they're more reliable. They're less likely to get injured. I just tend to lean that way. But I mean, I would have absolutely no issue with somebody picking Saquon Barkley with the number 1 pick. I can't say that by the time the draft comes that I could very easily change my mind. So, for me, there's really like a group of maybe 5 guys that interchangeably I would have no issue with them being the number 1 pick. And it's just a matter of your preference and your league settings and things like that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, that's been really fun to think about sort of the week 14, and we have the Alabama connection here. All we know is Roll Tide. I don't want to talk about the did you make the playoffs? I feel bad. I saw some of your posts, and I don't want to dive into back from our fantasy stuff, but we got to talk about exactly sort of the top players because it's a unique thing. But First, we're going to bring Frank back. We're going to bring Frank in here. So
let's go, Frank.
Bringing in our guy, Frank Inarante. Frank, good morning. How are you today?
Hello. How's it going? Great to be back. How are you guys doing?
What's up? Doing good.
Yeah, it's great to have you. All right, so I just talked with Jared for the last half hour about all things. Now, listen, let me I'm gonna remove our name here stuff so you see your face perfectly, but I wanted to just before we dive into with you, Frank, and you can think about this too. But we had, I wanted to do with Jared. He's very Alabama based, and you think about Alabama players in the NFL, and there's a number of them that are elite. And so, wanted to sort of hear and I loved your idea, Frank, too. Wide receiver, running back. Let's just say flex. If we're drafting a team, I just want 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, like the best ones for 2025. That are Alabama alumni. And that's a lot of guys. I mean, you think wide receivers, we got Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, Jameson Williams, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. I mean, we could Calvin Ridley. So there's a lot of options here. And then obviously you go to the running back position and, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris, Brian Robinson. I mean, the names are wild. So who's the best Alabama fantasy football player at running back and then wide receiver? Let's start with you, Jared, and then Frank.
Okay. For me, I'm gonna just have to go with the tank Derrick Henry. Although I love Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's tough for me between the two. I think on the Ravens offense, it's just so automatic, and he's the number 1 guy. He's putting it in the end zone every single week. Hard for me to pass him up. So Derrick Henry, keep being an alien and keep doing what you do. For wide receivers, this one is actually kind of tough because normally I would say a guy like Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle. But I actually think that, next year, I'm thinking I lean Amari Cooper. He's been hurt and he hasn't been, this year kind of showing probably that he's the number 1 Alabama wide receiver out there that you would want to roster. But I think with a healthy Amari Cooper and building some chemistry with Josh Allen, I think they're going to be absolutely sensational. You saw what Stephon Diggs did with Josh Allen. Amari Cooper is an elite talent, and I don't see why he can't be, top tier wide receiver, fantasy pick for 2025. So I'm all in on Amari Cooper.
Okay. I wasn't necessarily expecting those answers, but I like it. So now we go to you, Frank.
I'm gonna go Jahmyr Gibbs. I know David Montgomery's there, but he still had a good season. And if Montgomery ever misses time, Gibbs could be the highest scoring, player in fantasy. He's just that explosive. The situation's that good. Receiver, I like your pick with Amari Cooper because if he could stay healthy next year and fully acclimated to the Bills, he could have a nice resurgence. I'm gonna go with you on that. I like it.
There we go.
All right. So we got it's interesting. We got Derrick Henry as our top guy from Jared. Frank says Jahmyr Gibbs, but then you both agree on Amari Cooper. All right. So there you go. That could be the sleeper for next season. I mean, we got Frank and Jared here. PPR, 2 of the best in the content game, doing it all. All right. So Frank, thanks for joining. It's good to have you back on, and Jared sticking around to hang out for this next half hour. So we get a great conversation around fantasy. Now, I heard from Jared earlier, specifically around, and we did this before, sort of, bearish, bullish players from week 14. But with the idea of the playoffs looking forward, talk about sort of this is the morning after. So the fun segment of walk of shame, talk your game. So when we think about sort of guys that disappointed, they busted, they were not as good as we hoped, and also we're sort of not wanting to play them in week 15, let's say, who's a guy that comes to mind for you?
Well, we'll start off with Jaden Reed. I really thought he was going to have a good game against the Lions. Came off 2 touchdowns versus the Dolphins. I know he had been inconsistent coming into that game, but you figured the Packers would have to pass more than they had been previously, and it just didn't happen. And Reed's coming off like he's not playing enough. They're just not using him enough, in my opinion. And he's really hard to trust going forward. Like they love to run the ball, and Reed comes off unless it's 3 receiver sets. Packers play the Seahawks. Seahawks defense is improving. They've been quite good the last couple weeks. Hard to trust Reed in the playoffs. Another one that I put in, even though the expectations cratered on him, I still got to include him. It's Deebo Samuel, and yet another really low output from Deebo. Juwan Jennings is clearly the receiver to trust there. In this Thursday night game, Deebo's you got to consider him like a receiver 4 now. Like, how can you trust him?
Oh, that's tough. It's tough for 49ers fans for a lot of reasons, but that if you have Deebo, I was in one league where Deebo was the 5th overall pick. I know that was crazy at the time, but man, that's a tough one for that owner right now, and just the whole season. Okay, that was good because you guys both. I mean, Jaden Reed came up a lot. Obviously, any thoughts on what he said, Jared?
I mean, I totally agree with what he said. Jaden Reed, him and I agree there. And I don't think he missed. Totally agree.
All right, let's flip it now, Frank. Obviously, let's be excited. Who was like, whoa, they just changed what I might see for the rest of the season here?
Let's start with giving some credit to Zach Charbonnet. Every time Kenneth Walker's out, Charbonnet just completely smashes. Even the matchup. I know Arizona, you see it on paper, it's usually an easy matchup, but their run defense have been better recently. So I thought he was going to kind of be inefficient on the ground, Charbonnet, and that wasn't the case at all. So it's time for me, like whenever Kenneth Walker's out, just to rank Charbonnet top 12, regardless of matchup. I don't have the stats off the top of the head, but I could like every single time Walker's out, Charbonnet is finishing, at least top 12. So we got to give him credit there. If Walker's out again, another good matchup for Charbonnet against the Packers, he could help win you your league. Another one we got to talk up. Isaac Guerendo had a great game against the Bears, 128 total yards, 2 touchdowns. The thing is, he's had a foot sprain in that game, and short week, status in question for Thursday night. Hopefully Guerendo could play. We got to give him credit, and he's fully in the circle of trust if he does play.
Well, this is good point. I mean, the Niners are on Thursday night this week, right, against the Rams.
Yeah.
So short week. We have a predicament here. This is a perfect time to talk to you guys. Good. I like those names. Obviously, Charbonnet, incredible. It's not just that he puts up the stats. If you watch the game, you watch him and you go, that guy is doing it. Like, he sticks out. He looks good doing it. It's not lucky. It feels like he could do it all the time against anybody. He looks really good. So I love the Charbonnet stuff. If he's got the opportunity, you throw him out there. Like you said, he's a running back 1 in your lineup and will help you win fantasy playoff matchups. But let's talk about this 49ers situation, because we have a tough one. I mean, we've got just a mess at the running back position all season. Yet you literally can never have the right guy. And when you did have the right guy, then you have the wrong guy because he gets injured. And it's just a mess. And it's also just, a spot, though, usually that just performs fantasy-wise. The running back in San Francisco performs. So what are we thinking about Patrick Taylor? If let's say Guerendo's out because he has a leg injury, we don't trust Shanahan to tell us the truth, whatnot. But can we play Patrick Taylor on Thursday night confidently in our fantasy playoff matchup?
I would say yes, just because the situation is so good. And, Patrick Taylor had 7 attempts with a touchdown last week. Could be a high-scoring game against the Rams. I think I would have to rank Taylor in the top 24 running backs, so he's going to find his way in your lineup if Guerendo misses time. If Guerendo plays, I feel like that would tell us he's good to go. It's a desperate game for the Niners, so we could fire him up confidently. But if Guerendo's out, I think you got to use Taylor.
Zach?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree that if Isaac is out, he, like Frank says, he fits into the top 24. I don't see a running back that's getting workhorse volume on that offense not being able to at least get 1 to 2 touchdown opportunities. And I think Frank said 7 attempts he had after Guerendo went down. I mean, how do you not I don't know. You just can't. It would be tough to name other running backs outside of the top 24 if you were to rank your top 24 that you would feel more confident in starting or at least having an opportunity to score than the 49ers lead RB. So I would be nervous. I won't lie, just because, he's not a guy that's really had the games to build that trust, especially in the fantasy playoffs. If you're in like a 1 week and you're out type of situation, but you got to do what you got to do, and he's in a good situation and should get volume. So, yeah.
Yeah. Patrick Taylor, number 1 waiver request this week after Isaac Guerendo was sort of number 1 guy. Do you guys both think that it is Patrick Taylor's backfield this week, or do you think Guerendo's going to be healthy? I know we're just guessing here because we don't actually know, but would you be happier right now if you looked at your roster and you had Guerendo or Taylor?
I'd be happier with Guerendo. I feel like he will play, but given the chance that he doesn't, you have to be putting claims in for Taylor, whether you have Guerendo or not, I would say.
Zach?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely putting in claims for the backup. No doubt about that. I would prefer to have Isaac as well, just because, I do think that there's a reason that he's ahead on the depth chart. I think he's the more talented guy. Maybe not by a ton, who knows what could happen, but I would definitely prefer having Isaac and hoping that it's nothing too serious and they just took him out to, hope, they've got to think about the future. They can't risk having him get more injured, I guess, and kind of mess them up even more. They probably want to try and get him healthy and get him recovering as fast as they can. So
yeah,
Isaac's my pick. Yeah.
And the 49ers already lost Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason. Potentially we'll see what happens here with Guerendo. Okay. Frank, Braylon Allen, what's your take on the Jets situation? Because we saw sort of Isaac Davis share the entire backfield all day and actually perform maybe a little bit better. What do you think it looks like in week 15?
Yeah, I underestimated the usage for Isaac Davis. Even though I didn't rank Braylon Allen that high, I ranked him like 23rd, but it looks like it's a committee, Allen 11 carries, Davis 10. Davis had 6 targets to Allen's 5. So you gotta he'd be a good pickup, Isaac Davis, as if you're desperate, let's say, you need someone to put in the flex, you could take a shot. The Jets play the Jags, who obviously are not a good defense at all, so it's a good spot. But yeah, to sum it up, I think myself and even a lot, we kind of just looked at Braylon Allen as, this is a smash if Breece Hall misses time, and we neglected a little bit Isaac Davis to some degree.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, want to just hear a little bit about 2015, but not that yet. Obviously, I talked to Jared. You gave us a lot around week 15, start, sit, all this good stuff. Frank, what should we really be paying attention to, and what you see early before you dive into sort of deeper research as far as, playoff weeks 1, unless maybe some leagues start week 14 playoffs, but most are going to start week 15. Let's say you're playing. Where are we really looking for some of the players, or what are you keying on for week 15?
Well, one sneaky move you can make, I think, for week 15 is picking up the Falcons defense. They play the Raiders on Monday night. The Raiders are going to have to start Desmond Ridder. And the Falcons, even though they gave up 40 points against the Vikings, it seems like they've figured out their pass rush a bit. They got in the last 2 games 5 sacks and 4 sacks. So against Desmond Ridder, maybe they can keep that streak going with sacks and maybe force a turnover or 2. Falcons are in a must-win game. And the Raiders, like I'm getting tempted to take the Falcons in my survivor pool that I'm still in, just because no one's going to take them because they're the Falcons. They're 6-7, but they're in a must-win spot, and the Raiders are 2-11. Now they're in pole position for first overall pick. It feels like they're just gonna play out the year and kind of tank. I know everyone says teams don't tank, but like Shadir Sanders feels like perfect landing spot there. I don't know. I'm getting tempted, but to sum it up, Falcons are a good pickup to stream.
It's a good start, but and I want to hear, Zach, are you hearing as well? Frank, you don't believe in the Desmond Ritter revenge game? That doesn't apply here?
I mean, it could, yeah. So that's probably gonna ultimately make me not take the Falcons in Survivor just because they're very risky. I could just take the Vikings, but in terms of the pickup for defense, I think it's worth a shot with the Falcons. They're only 9% rostered in Yahoo leagues. Decent pickup as a streamer.
I love that. I'm joking. I don't.
No, it's true because You never know. Ritter moved the ball a bit when he came in against the Bucks, but
Ritter. Interesting. Zach, any thoughts on Desmond Ritter, Falcons defense next week, or you have a defense or someone you wanted to throw in as well?
I do think that that's a good call on the defense for a streamer option. I also think that the Cardinals could be a sneaky option going up against the New England Patriots. Just look for those offenses that struggle. Find yourself a defense that's been playing decently recently. I know, this last week the Cardinals didn't have much luck if you started them in fantasy, but overall they've been pretty solid, and that's a team that I think I'd be willing to roll the dice on. As far as Ritter goes, there's absolutely no chance I would ever start Ritter in any lineup of mine. That is crazy. There's just way too many quarterbacks that are likely on unless you're in like a super flex league, anything can happen in a super flex league with injuries and things like that. But if you're in a one quarterback league, Desmond Ritter should be 0% rostered in one quarterback leagues. There's no reason you should start him.
Okay, guys, I just thought about this and I have to go there. We're playing fantasy. There's 32 teams in the league. Everyone has one starting quarterback right now in the NFL to play. Who's the last guy you would want on your roster? Fantasy-wise, too. Because I'm thinking Desmond Ritter's out there. What we saw in Jacksonville now, we saw Mac Jones really that's tough. You could say Will Levis. I know there's high expectations for Will Levis, but that game also with him is Desmond Ritter the worst guy you could put in your lineup that if you had to start someone at fantasy quarterback, or is there someone even worse?
It's between Ritter and Mac Jones. Ritter, I remember one game last year, someone who won DraftKings, the DFS tournament, had Desmond Ritter as starter because he runs a little bit. He has those a random 18-point kind of game. Maybe I'm going to go my pick as the worst one, Mac Jones.
Okay. Zach?
Oh, man. For me, I hate to say it, but I do agree with that. I was looking at Mac Jones, and, that's my Bama guy, so I hate to talk down on my Bama boys, but, I mean, that Jacksonville offense has just looked pretty horrendous. They didn't even look good when Trevor Lawrence was there, which was shocking because they may not have won a lot the year prior, but they were at least they were kind of a fantasy factory as far as, your running backs go. You had wide receivers there that were doing well. And now all of a sudden you really can't rely too much other than on maybe BTJ to put up some points, which I will say, I'm surprised that he is still a startable player with Mac Jones. I kind of thought he was about to tank BTJ's value, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Mac Jones. I don't think you can't trust him in fantasy at all. But roll Tide, respect to you, Mac Jones.
That's got an automatic finish if there's a Bama player involved. Okay, fair enough. Also, nice way to throw in the tank with Jacksonville as they have Tanks Bigsby on that team. Okay, so Frank, you gave us Alabama defense as far as Week 15. What are you looking forward to as well in Week 15, or at least where people can focus on what you have content-wise coming out? Because you post a ton all the time, but when you think about someone wants to make sure they don't miss your stuff, obviously they're going to subscribe to your notifications, turn them on and good, but when is the stuff for you come out that's really important for people to pay attention to?
Well, fantasy football rankings will come out tomorrow. Waiver wire suggestions today, and then I update the rankings throughout the week. And as you know, like I'll tweet some tidbits of info and stuff. But I got something for the show here that we can talk about that I looked at. Going into last week, some people liked Amari Cooper against the Rams, and he delivered. Like he had a pretty good game. What was it? I wrote it. No, I didn't write it down. He had like 90 yards and a lot of air yards. I saw someone post over 200. And, Amari Cooper, given the inconsistency this year, has been on the fringe in terms of being able to start him. I think you got to fire him up. At Detroit, Lions have a banged-up defense. That total is like 53.5. Likely very high-scoring game once again. Cooper just got 14 targets against the Rams. I think you got to have Cooper in your lineup in week 15. I'm not mentioning Khalil Shakir, not because I don't like him either, but it's because he's been more consistent. So chances are you're probably in a spot to start him. But Cooper is more, on the fringe, and I think you got to fire up Cooper.
Hey, Zach, do you have anything other than Roll Tide to add?
Hey, I mean, I agree that if Amari Cooper is healthy, you can start Amari Cooper. The guy is elite. He's got an elite quarterback. He's in a good offense. He got heavy volume, which I absolutely love to see. And there's also other wide receivers on that team and other weapons on that team that can help kind of take the defense's, attention off him a little bit. Although I would expect the defense to kind of key in on him specifically, and for that to free up Khalil Shakir to make some big plays, maybe James Cook to mix in there, although he kind of turned into a ghost last night, shockingly. I love Amari Cooper. I think another good start that you can have. I'm going to just lean on my boy Jakobi Meyers. He's someone that I thought was a good value pick at the beginning of the season. I won't act like I expected Devontae Adams to for sure get moved off the team. I knew there were whispers of it. But when Jakobi has gotten volume, he's typically produced, and that, Raiders team is horrible. They're going to be playing from behind. They're going to have to throw. It's Brock Bowers and Jakobi Meyers putting their capes on and just trying to do whatever they can. So I think Jakobi Meyers is another guy that I would like as a flex play for week 15.
I love that. And also just to touch on that Amari Cooper and make, getting him in your lineup, it makes a ton of sense when you look at the Bills. Bills have scored 30 plus in 7 straight. And now you get that Lions matchup with the team that scores a lot. So that Detroit Buffalo game could be fireworks the same way we saw LA and Buffalo, you guys think, right?
Yeah, definitely. Especially given the Lions injuries on defense.
Hey, I hope you're right, because that would be, if we can get a repeat of what happened last night for back-to-back weeks, that would be crazy. Nothing better than a high-scoring game for, us folks that love fantasy football.
Yeah, those high-scoring games really help, unless you're playing against the guys. Sports, right? But that's how it goes. Okay, cool. So week 15, probably the playoffs start. Unless you're already in it, unless you're too good, you got a bye week. Then good luck. Take the week off and enjoy. Frank, looking towards 2025, and I asked Zach this earlier in the show. You obviously are getting your stuff together, but where do you look for the top overall pick in a fantasy draft for 2025? Like right now, who's overall number one?
Coming into this season, I foolishly was low on this player. I was worried about the receiving upside and Jalen Hurts taking touchdowns, but I got to go Saquon at 1. Like, even though he's got a lot of mileage, he's going to have a heavy usage season. I just can't pass up that situation given his talent. Like, the O-line is elite, and we've seen what he can do. So I got to go Saquon at 1.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. As the name there, Zach had Justin Jefferson at number 1. And Zach, I know you're going to get out of here, so just want to thank you for jumping on, and also tell everyone where they can make sure to follow or when your next hottest Roll Tide pieces are coming out.
Oh yeah, hey, I'm always trying to put out some Alabama. I like to get the people fired up, trying to say that Bama should have been in the playoff. Just having some fun, people. All right, I understand they didn't make it. It is what it is. But yeah, no, just on Twitter, PPR Fantasy Tips. I'll continue posting. I try and put 1 to 2 at least things out per day, some useful information for you to look at and make your own decisions with. And then, of course, always happy to give some opinions if you would need it, if you like it. But no, it's been good talking with you, Mike, and Frank. Good talking with you as well. And I hope you guys have a good rest of the show. And
Take
I'm
care.
sure we'll be talking again.
Yeah, it's always great to have a guy like PPR Fantasy Tips, and Zach. It's a pleasure. So have a great one. We look forward to talking to you down the road. All right, Frank. So you mentioned Saquon. What about the rest of the top 10? Where are we looking on that? And I'm sure you've already been putting work into this, but Saquon makes a lot of sense. But it's been a different type of year. We've seen some really elite performances. Saquon right at the top. Who else do you have in the top 10 for 2020?
So I got number 2, Bijan Robinson. He's really delivering lately. You look at his recent game log, he's getting fed and he's really producing like we expected when he came out of the draft. Number 3, I'm going Devon Achane. Elite receiving usage, obviously a good offense, and he's addressed the concerns we had. Like, does he have the workload that we need? Yes, he does. So he's just locked in. I really went 3 running backs in the top 3 because I think it's shifted back to running backs being, the gold standard of the first round after it went to receivers recently. I know some people are like, I can't wait to get all this receiver value, but with all these defenses playing more too high and teams letting their running backs finish off drives, I think we're going to see more of the same in next season. Anyways, number 4, I got Jamar Chase, obviously having a huge year with touchdowns and just really having that spike season. Justin Jefferson at 5. Honestly, for me, any of those 5 I mentioned are totally fine if you took first overall. If you wanted to play at receiver first and then try to get a running back on the way back, I understand that for sure. But number 6, I got Nico Collins. When he's produced at an elite level and really been the alpha in that Texans offense. At 7, I got CeeDee Lamb. Disappointing season, but still young, still one of the best receivers. Dak will be back. That could end up being a huge value, Lamb at 7, if he can repeat what he did in 2023. Number 8, when I tweeted this, I had Tyreek Hill, and a lot of people disagreed, and I get why they disagree. He's had a really disappointing year. And I don't think Tyreek Hill is cooked. I think he can give us a big season again. But in thinking about it and in seeing what this player did yesterday and what he's done since coming back from injury, I have to put him here, and that's Puka Nacua. So I replaced Hill with Nacua. And Hill I'll look at more as an early second rounder. But yeah, Puka Nacua has been phenomenal since returning from injury. Obviously, the rookie season was huge. Hopefully, Stafford doesn't surprisingly retire. But if he doesn't, Nacua is a stud. Then I got number 9, Jahmyr Gibbs. I keep him at 9 just because Monty is still really good, David Montgomery, and he takes away touches. But if, obviously, like we said, if Montgomery dealt with injuries or declined, Gibbs can just pop. And then finally, number 10, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's had a disappointing season by his standards, but still, that safe pick who will produce for you. And that rounds out my top 10 for 2025.
Okay, I love the list, and I was going to actually dive in to some of the names there. Specifically, I was going to talk about Miami. We saw Tyreek Hill have sort of his best game of the season since week 1, pretty much this week in week 14. So I see, I like the idea of, and then we saw Puka put together a masterful performance. Puka is second all time in the first 25 games of your NFL career for reception and receiving yards. So he's had an incredible first 25 games of his career. So it makes complete sense that you would elevate him into that top 10, especially over Tyreek, even though Tyreek has a good week 14 game. I mean, Puka just looks unbelievable when he's out there playing. It's unreal. But so you move Tyreek down a little, but more specifically for the next few weeks, can we trust Tyreek Hill for the rest of the season in Miami, or is this just going to be kind of waffling?
I think we could definitely trust Tyreek Hill as a top 15 receiver. He had a big game last week, but the thing is, I feel like he's still playing banged up because look at his yards per reception, 11.8. His previous 2 seasons in Miami, 15.1, 14.4. Even this big game we're mentioning, he had 10 catches, 115 yards, more of a possession type of receiver. We're not seeing the explosive plays as much. So for that reason, and I think it's because he's playing injured, not because of decline, we have to, temper expectation a little bit, but he's trustworthy for sure. Like,
Yeah,
that's the lineup. It's just, I'm just saying temper expectations in terms of where we rank Tyreek Hill. Obviously, if you have him, you're starting him, but I'm not going to be ranking him in the top 5, because he hasn't been as explosive.
Yeah, no, I think that's a perfect word right there. Temper your expectations on it. Finally, I want to go back to the top 10 before we get out of here. And question around, who do you have because tight end, interesting position all season. We've had guys like huge expectations they haven't matched. Rookies like Brock Bowers be incredible. Sort of the decline of the Kelsey is awesome, maybe, but it's slowing. And now there's just a lot of names out there. There's a lot of questions. Is Brock Bowers your number 1 tight end for 2025, or is Trey McBride? Where do you stand at the tight end position in 2025 right now?
Oh, it's got to be Brock Bowers. I would say he's worth a second-round pick in 2025. Got to think that the Raiders upgrade their quarterback position, especially if they finish with the first overall pick. They get Shadur Sanders. Bowers just looks generational. Producing at this level with this erratic quarterback play, he's going to dominate the tight end position for years to come. Trey McBride should have a way better year. It's just fluky, no touchdowns. He's going to be number 2 for me, probably more of a late second round, early third round pick, whereas Brock Bowers for me is entrenched in the second round. Those 2 are going to be in their own tier. I know Kittle's actually the highest scoring tight end by points per game, but he'll be a little bit down the list. Like, he'll be number 3 in my rankings, but I wouldn't take him in the second or third round just because he's getting older, so that's the risk there. But whereas Bowers and McBride are fully in their prime and young, so that separates them for me.
Just even talking to you now about it, you're right. I think Bowers is obviously very elite at the tight end position now in his own right. I mean, Trey McBride, if he could ever get in the end zone, would completely change and elevate his elite level, because the numbers he does without a touchdown all season is pretty impressive, but you kind of need those touchdowns to get those extra points to really boost your value. And we've seen that out of Bowers. Bowers already broke Sam Laporta's tight end receptions record, and he still has 4 games to go this season. So you can see how good he's done it, and he's done it with just quarterbacks off the street. So it's impressive. Tight end is going to be an interesting position for sure next season with all these names that have fallen off. We've got Laporta, Kincaid, Andrews, Kelsey. There's Jonnu Smith elevates. So it's going to be an interesting, different type of, moving forward for 2025 in tight ends as part as fantasy is concerned. All right, it's a lot of fun. Frank, any final thought that people should be aware of that you want to share as far as week 15 of the fantasy football season and the playoffs? This is the most exciting time, the time that you really want to win. You want the luck to be on your side. Anything you could share with us?
I would say, obviously, don't neglect kicker, defense. Try to make sure you have a good matchup there. Like I mentioned, a sneaky one in the Falcons. Try to choose a kicker who's playing indoors if you can. And, players who you drafted high, like Deebo Samuel, that have just not produced, do not start them. I know we get tempted. I've done it too, where you but maybe he gets finally going, but it doesn't happen. Got to leave guys like that on your bench. And good luck in the fantasy playoffs. I got to mention this, though. Tonight, I'm sweating one big time. I'm up by 1.24 points, half PPR. I need to win and in, lose, I'm out. I got Rico Dowdle. He's got Jamar Chase. Do I have any chance? What do you think?
You have Rico Dowdle, and he has Jamar Chase?
Yeah, and I'm up 1 point, one-ish.
Yeah, I don't feel good. I don't feel good about your chances.
Obviously not. Yeah, but hey, interesting thing. Rico Dowdle's props, 90.5 total yards for him, and Chase's receiving yards is at 80. Hey, you never know. I have a kind of good feeling that I'm going to pull off this upset, but it's going to be wild.
You might. And I love Dowdle's setup tonight. He's got a great opportunity to do well. but you know how it is. It's
Yeah.
gonna it almost comes down to who gets in the end zone and who gets in the end zone more, right? This could be a game where one of them gets 2 touchdowns, one of them gets 1, and that could be the difference. I mean, you're 1 point. The difference is so tight. And the thing is, in other years, I might be much more in your favor. But just what we've seen from Chase this season and with Burrow, it's really at the peak level of how good he's been and they've been. And maybe it's because I'm watching AFC in-season Hard Knocks that I'm even a little bit more geared to just think like it's going to be really good for Chase. But I get it. I'm with you. Hey, we gotta go. But one question, because we play in a fantasy football dynasty league, first season this year, and we made a trade. Why did you rip me off by stealing Russell Wilson from me for a second round draft pick?
That was a spot where I needed a quarterback. I lost Dak Prescott, and I wanted to target a quarterback who was a little bit attainable. At the time we made the trade, Russell Wilson, I think it'd been like 2 games reinserted as Steelers starter, so it wasn't like you were so hesitant to get rid of him. You're rebuilding, right? Like you're any picks you get, like you would want, and especially for a veteran like Russ. So I get it on your angle, and for me it was just I needed a QB.
All right, so I'm not rebuilding. I'm ready to win.
Well, I mean, not like rebuild. I meant like anytime anyone gives you like a second rounder for a veteran like Russ, who's not exactly huge in fantasy anymore. I mean, if I were you, I would have done it too.
Yeah, I thought it was a fair trade. You actually needed a quarterback this season, more specifically, and you have a good team. I had Mahomes and Sam Darnold, so it was easy for me to sort of move Russell Wilson off and get a future pick. But I kind of need you to not play as well in the future so I can get a better second-round pick. Anyways, I don't think it's going to happen because you're pretty good. You know your stuff, and we always enjoy talking to you, especially here on the morning after.
Yeah, I screwed that up. You aren't rebuilding. You're in the playoffs. My bad.
No,
but you have Mahomes and Darnold, so like it made perfect sense for you.
Yeah, and also let's just be fair. I know you're this is a 12-team league. We got some of the best creators in the business in this with us. First season, you do have Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, but would you trade your top 2 running backs for mine?
I got to go back and look what you.
All
have.
right,
I got it here. You got Achane and Jacobs and Barkley. Oh, you have Achane and Barkley. Damn.
Tough.
I think I would not because Barkley's older, and I still have high hopes for Breece Hall, even though he disappointed us this year.
No, I'm with you. No, it's a fun question. We'll have to see it for sure. I'm with you. I'd probably keep on to Breece and Bijan, even though Saquon and Achane Jacobs this year looks pretty good. But it's fun. This is what fantasy is all about. We have a lot of fun. It's always fun talking to you here on the morning after. Good luck this week in your fantasy matchups. Frank, where can everyone follow you and make sure that they don't miss any of your great stuff?
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Always a pleasure. You can follow me at FAmarante_TFJ on social. I'm active on Twitter, on X. And good luck tonight. If you need a Monday night miracle, I hope it happens. And go Rico Dowdle.
I hope it happens for you. I'm going to be watching locked in now to see how that Chase Dowdle matchup plays out. And hopefully we'll talk to you sometime soon back here on the morning after. Have a good one, Frank.
Yep. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much. All right. So there he is. That's the man, Frank Amarante. I love having him on and talking with him because he is such a good guy, but also such good information. Also, PPR, my guy Zach says Rico generational week incoming for you, Frank. Great way to wrap up this Monday's week 14 TMA football. It was a lot of fun. Thanks to Terrell Bush for coming on at the start of the program, of course. And of course, my guys, PPR Fantasy Tips, Zach, showing up. First time we got him on the program. And of course, Frank Amarante. Follow them all on X, on YouTube. You can subscribe to them. Don't miss any notes. If you're looking to win in fantasy football, they're certainly going to be helpful guides. They have so much content and helpful information that they're providing daily, weekly. You can't miss it. Turn your notifications on. And of course, subscribe and follow my YouTube channel at Michael Rippey, and of course on X, where I only put the best of best winning content out there to help you win. It is playoff time. Week 15 is coming up. Hope you made your fantasy playoffs. If you need something wonderful tonight, week 14, let's finish it off with a bang. We'll see you back here for week 15, the morning after football, week 1 of the fantasy playoffs and the regular season rolls on. This was a lot of fun today. We'll see you next time on The Morning After. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a good one. Be healthy, be happy. One love.